Hello everyone. Welcome back to your bi-weekly Swing Trading Academy weekly call or bi-weekly call. How's everyone doing? You can hear me and see my screen. If you don't mind just saying hi and saying yes, that would be amazing, just so I know everything's working on my end. Amazing, Jenny. We're just going to give it another 2 minutes, let people jump on in. Hi, Sanjay. How are you? Absolutely. It's been a little while. Good to be back. Super excited. There's some lovely things on the horizon with some of the charts. So there's a couple new faces on here. We've changed up a little bit of the format in terms of how we're going to do these calls, just so that it's bringing a lot more value to you guys instead of doing them weekly. We will be doing them bi-weekly, just so that we're not constantly going over the same thing. I've gone back and rewatched a lot of the webinars and weekly calls we've recorded so far. And I just thought we'll let people accumulate questions, give some time to the market to sort of evolve, gather your questions, things like that. And then every other week, we'll be jumping on a call. It just makes a little bit more sense, as well as it gives people more opportunity to jump on, because a lot of us have some other priorities as well. And now that the summer's over, it's time to dive in and take care of business. Just give it another minute just so that people have a little bit of time to jump on, and we'll go into it. If you guys have any questions on trading, things like that, please go ahead and type them out on the chat box in the right. If this is your first time jumping onto a call, we're going to be going over the BTC USDT chart. We'll go over a couple of the other charts that I'm watching and kind of my thoughts behind it, break them down so you understand what's going on. And then we'll have time for some questions at the end. But if there's any questions during me going through the charts, feel free to drop them in the chat as well, and I will get to them as I flip back and forth from chart to the actual chat. All right, I think it's time. Let's jump on in. So I have gone ahead and opened up my BTC USDT chart here on TradingView. Now I've gone ahead and left a couple of lines in terms of patterns, things like that, I've been using over the past few weeks to really keep track of where this chart has been at. Now, for you or for those who were on the last call, which was a little while ago, we were in sort of this price action here. All right, so we've kind of evolved here through August and September. Actually, it was right here is where we were at in August, right here. So a little bit of time has passed, and we've started to evolve on this chart. Now, I am on the daily time frame, just so we have a little bit more information. Now, we knew that overall, since the beginning of the year, we've had that bullish sort of momentum up in BTC, right? Which we were sort of predicting from those who were in the Academy previous, where this was a descending channel. We were watching for the breakout, and we actually did ride this wave all the way up, which was amazing. There was a lot of opportunities to buy, but now since we're up in this current price action here, just on the daily chart, you can see that price action did start to form a descending channel quite beautifully. I know that as price action was evolving, I'm actually just going to hit the replay bar here. Most of you did look at this as sort of a flag to move to the upside, right? Which there was an argument for, but we didn't form that flag because, as you can see, when we do move forward through price action here, you'll see as it starts to correct that we did start to move down into that selling sort of bearish momentum there, which was totally fine, which we also did cover the two different possibilities, the probable and the possible, on the last call, which we will also go over as I drop down in the time frames. Now, as you can see, we are in this bearish sort of market here. We've impulsed down. We've now created that correction, right? We've got our two phases, which is the impulse and the correction. We are now waiting for our other impulse. Now, of course, the probable here is we've got impulse, bearish flag, so we're going to look for an impulse to the downside. Now, there's a couple of factors that we need to be looking at here. Even though we have this descending channel, we do have two touches on the bottom trend line, as well as one, sort of two here, and then 3 and 4. I'm just going to reel this in so you can see those actually touch, or even 1, 2, 3 here if you don't want to count this one as a touch, even though it broke up. You might see that I am breaking through this wick, reason being that this was just a high test candle. So in those positions where it is a high test like that, and all that high test means is we're testing the high, and then it came back down, right? So we're just testing the highest point that it could move. That's why it is called a high test. And vice versa here, you can see that this is a low test. It's just testing the lows, all right? So that is why I'm cutting through that candle wick, just so you have a little bit of information where it does make sense to where if I cut through there, I'm having a touch on the top trend line right here at the 10.833 mark, and then as well as here in the 10.266 mark. All right, so that's kind of why that's there. And then as well as here on the bottom trend, we've got 1, 2. Now, for those who've been on calls previously, you will remember these two forecasts that we had put up, which was the probable at the time of when we were recording the last call, and the possible, right? So we had two scenarios. We had a bullish scenario right here, right? And then we had our bearish scenario, okay? So I always preach making sure you forecast out at least a minimum of two outcomes, and 4 is best, right? So 4 is best practice. Now, I've done this for a long time. I've been through this. I do it all the time. I still do it. But I just done 2 because these are the 2 that I was most comfortable with at the current time. Now, if you notice, some of these do line up here, right? This was more so we wanted this to come down, create that flag, and then push to the upside, right? That's what we were looking at here. So if you see, this is what I was looking at when we charted out. It's obviously not exact, but it's quite close. This is what we were looking at here, as well as this was the head and shoulders that is essentially playing out, right? So we had our probable and we had our possible. So there you go. There's that. So we wanted that spike down, impulse. If we got a nice hover here and broke up, this would have been a long play. If not, we were also looking at our head and shoulders pattern here, in which you can see the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then we were going to look for that break to the downside. So it is now obviously forming that sort of head and shoulders pattern, which is quite nice because we know that, all right, we are in a position here where it could reverse, but the current price action is a bearish impulse to the downside. We're correcting, and now we're looking at that overall push to the downside. Now, how low is it going to go? You might see this blue box just right here. So what am I using that for, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this box. I'm looking at that previous low, right? So we had an impulse up and then we had the correction. So that first correction is where I'm looking at. So this candle wick here. So if you can see right here, and then I'm pulling to where that level of resistance was used. So it came back down, it became support and pushed up, all right? So you can see it pushed, price action pushed up and out of this. If we were to look at the overall price action, we've got, I'll draw it out. So we've got impulse, correction, impulse, right? So I'm using this corrective phase here, right, that you can see right there as my guide. So in that previous correction, where are we seeing price action sort of become resistance and support, right? So we don't use support and resistance, but we are using it to guide us over here, all right? So we're not going to base our trades off support and resistance, but we will use it so that we have a little bit of an idea of what's going on in current price action. So if I were to, let's say, draw a square like this, where it kind of engulfs that entire price action, you can see this previous correction where it went impulse up, became support, became resistance, became support, and pushed up. All right. So you can see what's going on here. So it's the exact opposite of what's happened in the past, right? So it's now come down. It's become resistance. We're looking for it to become support, become resistance, and then come down. So that effectively is going to give us an idea of, okay, it could, this is what price action is showing right now. But if we were to forecast out, I'm looking more so at an overall bigger flag that could possibly come up to where we come down, push all the way back up. Now, this is where most traders will get excited, say, okay, now it's reversing, blah, 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 blah. We're in a descending channel. We've had our correction. We've had our second correction. But what in fact all this is telling us is we've got impulse, correction, impulse down and out, all right? Now, how low is that going to go? That we don't know just yet because we haven't seen that price action, right? So we're speculating the fact that it is going to come to the downside. How far down, we are not sure at the moment. What we can do from this little exercise here on the daily chart is actually do what we just did. So if we take, let's go ahead and move this down to where I want it. So these are the levels that we're looking at here, right? So this is a good level to where we can say, okay, there's going to be some sort of a corrective phase here. So if we move down, impulse up, right? Completing that correction, we're now going to get an impulse to the downside. So we'll see an impulse, but this is what we're likely to see, right? Keyword likely. As it comes down, we're going to see some sort of correction in this area here, all right? And then we're going to see that push down, giving us impulse, correction, impulse. So a smaller version of the overall move, okay? Now, if we were looking to look at, okay, where are we going to see this third touch on the bottom trend to complete this descending channel? Look for previous corrections, all right? So if we look at previous corrections, I'm gonna look, okay, so if we use this one already, this is an impulsive move, this was the correction. So let's look at the lows of that. So if we were to grab the low, let's look at the entire correction, okay? So this is the entire correction here and pull it across. Now, if we pull it across, we're looking anywhere from 4,700 to 5,590, right? So 5,600, let's call it. Just make it a nice round number. And then 4,750 is perfect. It's a round number, all right? So this is the entire correction. Now, the possibility is from there to there that we could hit it. Now, what is even more likely to happen is, come on, bring that down just how we did previous. And we're looking at the low of the first correction, right, to the previous, the last level of support before it pushed up. So the first correction, the low, and the last price action support. So that's going to be most accurate there just to look at. That gives us a little bit of a better idea to aim for. Okay, if we're going to come on down, this is going to be my hot zone to wait and see when it's going to correct. If I start to see corrective nature in this area, we're going to look to get long because we know that overall bias, once we've got that third touch, we've created our correction here. We're going to create another correction here. So we've got our first phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase, and then our fifth phase is going to be the finishing of that descending channel, which is very, very similar to what happened here. So if you want to go and back test, use this area here from, let's say, October 31st, 2018 to December, let's say 19th, 2018. If you want to go ahead and back test that price action, you're going to notice when you do drop down that this is just an overall bigger version of this previous move. All right. And if it's kind of funny, if you go ahead and look at the time frame that this is happening, it's nearly identical 1 year apart. All right. So now let's go back and do this once again to where we go to October 2017. You're actually going to notice it was in a downtrend then as well. And it just started to flip up. So here we go. This is 2017. It was in a downtrend, but it did move to the upside. 2018, it was in a downtrend. It took all the way till January to really get some legs and move to the upside. And now here we are in October 2019, where we're starting to move down again, where I'm expecting, obviously, end of October, early November is when we're going to start to see that upside happen once again. All right. What caused this wave, you think? Did you short on this breakout a few days ago? Did you long on the breakout in August? All right, so let's answer these questions kind of one by one. All right, Jeff. So one, what caused the wave? There's multitude of different things, right? So the overall market works off fear and greed, right? Once markets start moving up like this, everyone starts buying all the way at the top. They keep buying. They're going to say, hey, we're at 16,000. It must go to 20, right? It gets to 18,000. It must be going to 22. It's at 20,000. It's going to go to 26. And what happens is the smart investors are going to say, hey, this is the absolute top it's ever been. Let's start to sell because we've made some real decent money here. Right? There was billions made in this run. As we started to sell, market started to go down. People are saying, oh no, I bought at, let's say, 14,000. It's now below 14,000. I'm just going to hold. Right? So then people start to buy again. They say, oh, let's say it drops down to 11,000. Oh, that's a great price. It was previously at 20. It shoots back up. And then again, people who made a lot of money in this uptrend here, they're going to say, hey, let's sell out. This is a good time. Sell. And then that cycle keeps repeating. So that's what's going on here, right? So as we see this spike to the upside, people are saying, okay, at the bottom, it was at 3,100. It's pretty much the lowest it's ever been. Let's buy up. It can't go any lower. A lot of people started to do that. Hype started to pick up. A lot more people started to get in. We got that initial spike back in April. We pushed up. Now people are like really turned on to it. So now there's even more money coming into the market. And the funny thing is this time around is most of that money came into the BTC, not necessarily any of the alts. So usually you'll see in these runs like this, that once BTC started to pick up, all the alts followed it, right? All the altcoins started to follow behind it. Whereas this run, it was more drastic towards just BTC. So BTC started to really pick up and ramp up with volatility, but the alts did not follow. So as we started to move up, we hit 14,000. We've gone over this before. 14,000 was another really big selling point on BTC. So if you go back test 14K here, you'll see if I drop this horizontal ray line, you'll notice that we're not far off that area, right? We're pretty much on it. So you can see people were like, all right, we made a lot of money. It's been from, I've held this trade from January all the way till June. I've 10x'd my income or 10x my account. Let's get out of this trade. That happened with quite a lot. That's why you start to see this descending channel start to form. All right, so that explains that. And then did I short the breakout in terms of this breakout here? No, I did not. Overall, for the past month and a bit, even over a month, really once June hit, I was a short bias on this pair overall. And I know we did have some time to go short. And if you actually go back and listen to a few calls back from June, you'll see I even say we're not going to see a bigger long till the end of the year. So my overall bias was short, but there were swing trades such as this descending channel that I did take long, and few other smaller trades to where I was in and out of BTC. So that's that. Did you long the breakout in August, which was here? Yes, I did. We were in on that. And if you notice, this was the actual forecasting that I used to pretty much base my trade off. It was kind of, we're in a descending channel. Overall, market's correcting. This descending channel was more so looked at as a flag. So I took that long. I was looking for the hover, but we started to get signs of rejection and reversal at the top there. So I closed down my position, half my position. And then once it pushed all the way down and corrected, I closed down the entire position. So there's that. Yes. And then why do you think it'll correct first before going down? In terms of this correction here, because that's how the market moves, right? So we've got impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse. Now, it's not necessarily going to correct here, but that is how the market moves. And if you notice there's a correction in this area previous to, we're more than likely to get another correction in that area just because of psychology. We're around that psychological round number of 7,500 to 7,000. We're in that sort of block there. So you're likely to see that. Now, that's not necessarily true or 100% because of the fact that if we get enough volatility, such as this push here, if we get another one of those, we're going to blaze right past this number. But at that point, you're going to start to see people buy up at these round figures, right? So you'll start to see trades start to accumulate on the buying side at the 7,500. People are going to say, oh, 7,500 is a great deal if they previously bought at 7,500 and sold at 14,000, right? So you can see you literally double your money there in terms of an investment perspective. But if you were trading that, there's a ton of money to be made in this run here. So the people that did that are probably more than likely, because of fear and greed, they know that if they were greedy and they took this position here and they made money, they're going to say, hey, this is a buy position. So you'll see that correction, and then that's going to catch them out, and the market's just going to sell because we know the overall market is on a downtrend. So that's a way of looking at that. So it starts to go down when fear overcomes greed. Exactly. Yep. Greed breeds greed. Breeds greed. Until finally fear overcomes greed. Yep. Literally. Is there any way to predict when these reversals will occur? Well, that's exactly the entire point of speculation, right? We're here to learn the strategies that are tried and tested and proven over and over. There's no 100% guarantee in any trading plan. So that's why we do this. Right. So the entire thing is, how can you be an absolute sniper or a weapon at entries? Your entry is the most important, and then your second most important is management. Right. So you want to get in at the right time, manage perfectly, and get out. You don't want to be caught on the wrong side of the market or getting in too early or getting in too late, because that's when the mistakes happen. That's when fear and greed happens. That's when FOMO comes into play. That's when a lot of the psychological stuff happens. So you need to make yourself a trading plan, write it down, and execute on that trading plan. Even if it's wrong, but you did execute on that trading plan, you know that this is going to be a much better psychological way of thinking when it comes to trading. Now that we've gone over the daily chart, does that make sense to everyone in terms of an overall bias, where we are at and what to look for. Alex, Brian, Daniel, Jenny, Reese, everyone. That makes sense? Awesome. Amazing. All right, so now that's just the daily chart. Let's break it down on the 4 hour here. So as you can see, now that we're starting to get a little bit more information, I've also, like I mentioned earlier, I did leave a little bit of my trend lines on there over the past month and a bit, so that you guys have an idea of kind of what we're looking at, what to expect, and you can kind of compare it to yours, right? So I always tell people our lines don't necessarily have to be exact, but the overall identification needs to be similar, right? So that'll kind of tell you if you're on the right track or not. Now, don't take my advice as 100% I'm going to be correct, because like I've said, there is no trading plan. There's no trader with 100% execution. It's purely speculation from my trading plan, from my expertise and the years that I've put in. So make sure you do your own forecasting and have your own bias as to why the market is going to do what it's doing. Okay, so here we are on the 4 hour chart. You can see this is that correction, right? So we got that large impulse to the downside. We saw impulse, then this is a correction, impulse. We're starting to see this correction, then we got an impulse up, and now you can see this correction. This correction is starting to form a beautiful descending channel here, right? As you can see. Which I expect it doesn't necessarily have to come on down all the way to the bottom. It would be better if it did, but if it didn't, that's totally fine. It's already had 2 touches on the bottom trend. So even considering 3 here, depending on how you have your trend line drawn in there, it can just come down, creating that overall arcing action. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, get rid of these lines. So if we zoom in here, let's get some more eyes on this area here. So you can see we've got impulse, correction, impulse, correction. So now what are we looking for? We're looking for an impulse down. Hopefully this continues to trickle down in this descending channel, but BTC is not one pair that has that effect where it just trickles, right? So you'll see a lot, I say a lot of the times that you'll see things like XRP, some of these alts, they just kind of trickle down even though they've completed a pattern. And that's just from back testing those pairs. I know that there's certain pairs that do that, right? But with BTC, what are we going to look for here? So we've got our impulse down. We've got our correction. We've got another impulse. We've got another correction. I would look for an impulse. And then if it just kind of slowly came all the way down and gave us a touch at the bottom, I would be 100% taking this as a short play to the upside, right? Because there's still a decent amount of percentage that we can take from this trade. But even if we were to do this, where let's get rid of, let's do this here. Let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of this. If we were to do something like this, where now that we've got our impulse, correction, so if we draw this in here, it's kind of messy. Let me redo this 1 second. Let's use this guy. So we've got impulse, correction, impulse, correction. Look for that impulse down. You can see here we've got our impulse, our correction, there. So you can see that overall move, right? Impulse, correction, impulse, correction. Now, that is an overall completed pattern. This is why I'm saying it can go at the current price action, but let's get a little bit more nitty gritty. All right. So if we drop down to the 1 hour, you can start to see that it's kind of coming to create an arc. You can see price action is not really moving fast. It's not moving up. It's not moving down. It's kind of just trickling, making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. But now it's starting to look like we've got a high test candle here. We're looking to reverse. We're getting some dojis, and we're looking to move down. So what would we be looking for here? We would be looking for something like this, where price action kind of just swoops up, comes down, spikes up. Okay. If we do get that, beautiful. I would look for a push sort of to this previous high. And then from there, I would make my assessment if it was going to short back down or if it's going to push up, complete that overall correction, like we said earlier, right? So if it scoops, pushes up, and then we're going to look for that overall bigger short. But currently, the way price action is going, this is what's more likely to happen, where we're going to try to look for a double bottom sort of in this area here. Or if it does push down, we're going to look for one there. So if you want, instead of drawing two ray lines, we can go ahead and draw that area that we want to be keeping our eyes on. And once price action enters this kind of hot zone, we're going to be looking to make our decisions from there. So once it touches here, or if we break inside and it's a corrective sort of fashion where we're seeing this is going to turn around, that's when we're going to make our buying decisions. If we see this break impulsively below, we could see that third touch and push up, or we could see this kind of just trickle. So these are the things that I mean by forecasting, making sure that you look at all these different scenarios, make sure you understand what is happening in the market so that you're not caught off guard, right? Preparation is key, because if you are caught off guard when you're speculating, this is when you're going to make silly mistakes like moving your stop too early. You're going to have a tighter stop when you should have had a bigger stop. You're going to lose 1% or 2% for no reason, right? So we need to be sure of all the different kinds of outcomes here. So in terms of the overall bias, even if we were to drop down to the 15-minute, we don't necessarily need to on this chart at the moment because it's not going to give us anything. 1 hour is plenty for us at the moment. We don't need to be executing any sort of positions, so there's no need to drop down. But you'll see that with this ascending, it's a sort of ascending channel if you look at it, right? We'll draw through that impulse, draw through these candles here. You can see it's an ascending channel. We've got our impulse, correction, impulse, correction. If we get another impulse up, that'd be great, but it's giving us that more so that overall arcing nature to which we would look to make our decisions inside of that box. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this in. I'm going to leave this here for myself as well so that I know on the lower time frames, this is what I'm looking at in terms of executing inside this overall correction. So if we back on out to the daily, right, we're going to come on back. You'll see that that is the overall trade that we were just looking at. The intraday trade to the overall swing that's going to happen over the long term here. So there are, again, like I've said, there's always going to be, you're always going to want to catch that impulsive leg. This is the main goal here, but there's always positions to be catching on these pairs during corrective phases as well. Just making sure you understand what phase you're in and how you're going to manage and enter those trades. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. All right. So does that make sense for everyone? Any questions? I'm assuming that this descending channel is too volatile to take any trades on. In terms of descending channel, are you assuming this, or are you assuming the one down on the 1 hour there? The overall descending, or this smaller descending within the correction? The smaller one. Yeah, so I just pretty much explained what we're looking at doing in terms of getting into this position if we do get in. It's not necessarily too volatile. There's just not a big enough move to get in, right? You're looking to get a minimum of 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio. If we were to drop in any of our charts, let's say we get in here, let's say we keep our stop outside of the pattern here so that we keep our stop safe, we'd have to be getting in right at the bottom of this at that 8,000 level to even make a 2-to-1 to just the outside of the trend. So if I were to get in, let's say here, it wouldn't make sense to the top of the trend because it's only 0.5 of a percent, or yeah, 0.5 of a percent. Whereas if there was reason to get in long to the top right here, we'd be looking at a 3-to-1 risk to reward, 3.5 to 1. That would be awesome. But I'm more likely to hold off and wait for this, which would be a nice 4, 7, almost 5% to 1, which is why I'd rather it come all the way down to the outside, because it's easier to keep that stop a little bit tighter, right? We can move that stop in where we keep it outside of structure there. We look for the reversal at the bottom. And then you can see from the bottom to this 90% rule, we're going to be looking at 11% trade just in this tiny little correction here. Now, that's not to say it'll stop there, but that's where I'm going to be looking at making my decision if I'm going to close out, if I'm going to move my stop, if I'm going to keep continuing to scale in and ride it all the way to the top of this correction. If I take it to the top of the correction, there's a good 15%, 16% just in this tiny correction here, let alone getting out, waiting for this to come all the way down, and then taking other positions all the way up, right? So just so you're aware, you can see that tiny little blue square to the top of that ray line there is what we're considering getting into. But if we get on this all the way up here, that's 15% just in that correction there. So that tiny little bit, look at the possibilities from here to here, right? It's all about execution and making sure that you're getting in at the right time. Any other questions regarding BTC USDT? None? All right. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of the other charts that I've been keeping my eye on very closely here over the past couple weeks. Overall, I'm not going to dive in these too deep. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overall kind of breakdown where we're at. So here we are with XRP BTC. This is going to be one of the, I've been saying this is going to be one of the bigger moves for 2020. So keep your eyes on XRP. This is going to be a nice, beautiful push to the upside. Ton of percentage, ton of move to be happening. We're in this descending channel. This is what I mean by kind of fizzling out. So there's been multiple times where there's been reversals. We actually did catch this upward bullish move back in May, which was great. But this is overall just kind of fizzled out all the way down, kind of pushing lower, 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 lower. And it's starting to complete this descending channel now, which is beautiful. And I would look for, hopefully we do get a push down. I want this to push a little bit lower because that gives me more confidence for the overall bigger move. But if we do break out, I will be looking for positions to get in here because these are signs of reversals to move to the upside. Now, you can go ahead and drop this down to the 1 hour and you can see how much this has actually moved to the upside, right? So even in this correction, there's been a ton of moves up pushing. But right now, where we're at is we're creating that arc to actually come on down and reverse even lower. So if we come on down into that in between sort of the 20,000 to the 15,000 mark there, that's where my sweet spot's going to be to actually get in, which is going to be right about this area here. You see this little cursor on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, so that's going to be the sweet spot. Overall, really great chart. It's looking really nice and starting to line up very, very well. If we look for the double bottom, we've got this expanding type pattern, overall bigger pattern, as well as a descending channel. So these are great signs for a larger move to the upside, which would be real awesome. All right. Next one up is Aetherium Btc. Again, we've pushed even lower than the previous lows, which is kind of, I've mentioned this before. I don't like trading in price action such as this because of the fact that there is no previous historical data to now measure off, right? We can't do any sort of back testing in this area here. There's nothing, right? Previous to, there's absolutely no data for me to go back and back test, which is always worrisome. But the fact that we're finally finishing off this descending channel is really, really good. Got some good promising price action coming up here. Once again, you're going to see the similar price action through a couple of these altcoins where we pushed up now. Reason being, BTC's moved down now, right? So you can see that correlation there. But I want BTC to move up so that these short a little bit further, right? You can see that this will move down, complete this, and this is going to move up, which will correlate to this overall bigger push to the downside, right? So once this moves down, we're going to see XRP move up, Ethereum move up right beside it. So make sure you keep your eyes on that and learn how these charts and these patterns actually correlate with each other, right? Another good one is Ikon Aetherium. Again, similar type of situation as Aetherium Btc, where we have broken the low. We're not really, there's nowhere for me to historically go back and back test this data. But we are sort of creating this descending channel that is starting to get complete, as well as you can see that there's a hover here. If we just draw this in right there, that's also completing a descending channel. So you can see that there's a descending channel about to complete within a descending channel that's about to complete, that's in a descending channel that's about to complete. All right. So you can go back and watch that video on patterns and how patterns within patterns are a lot more powerful than just a single pattern. So as we see 3 different signs of reversals, you can see price action starting to reverse. This is one that I'm keeping a close eye on because if we get a large reversal to the upside, I'm going to be getting into this move, but I'm not convinced just yet. Another one is BTT USDT. So obviously we know that BTT is BitTorrent. As we drop on down here, again, this one at least is above that historical low, but we are finishing up this descending channel. So we've got our impulse, we've got our correction, we've got our impulse, we're getting another correction. If we get another low, that would be awesome. It's sort of mirroring BTC USDT. And as this comes down and creates that double bottom, if it is strong enough to hold, we will look to buy this as a reversal opportunity, all right? XRP USDT is okay. I'm not too concerned about it, and anything really below this in terms of what I have on my watch list, I'm not too concerned with, but I do have it on here just to keep an eye on what is going on with certain coins so that I can correlate them back to BTC or Ethereum or XRP and such, all right? So Litecoin BTC is actually another good one. We've created that 90% rule. We've completed this pattern. We've reversed all the way down. We beat that 90%. We've hit it. So now I would look to see what sort of price action we're going to get in this area. If we get a nice descending channel, as you can see, that's kind of being made. You'll see this across a lot of the coins at the moment. It's just because of the way the market is that pretty much they all have descending channels. It's just a matter of when these are going to complete and how they're going to react to the BTC. So you can see here, essentially it's a similar thing, impulse correction, right? So we've got our first correction here, impulse correction, second correction. So now it's the final phase where we're looking for an impulse down and then a push to the upside. And this also has previous historical data to where we can backtest to see, okay, let's drop a horizontal ray in this area. All right, that price action is very, very close to it. It broke below, broke up, broke below, broke up. I'm looking for that final breakdown and then just a push to the upside. So that's a couple of the alts that I wanted to go over, but let's go over a few different coins. Now, in terms of, can you touch on Loki? Ron went over it as a possible investment. All right, well, let's do that. I'll go over Loki. a lot of the times you'll notice that Iman will be looking at, what's the ticker on that one, Sanjay? I don't think it's the actual name. Not sure. LOK. No, I don't think it is LOK. Yeah, these are all stocks. If I go into crypto, a lot of these are funny like that. I noticed a couple of the new ones don't really necessarily have matching tickers to their the actual coin name. That's fine. Let's go over Kryptonium at the moment. So CRPT. Let's go. Do you want it to pair against Tether or BTC? Tether. All right, let's do it. CRPT, USDT. All right, so here we are. Let's go to the weekly just for a quick second here. I just want to see the overall. What does this look like? Getting a lot of volatility on this chart. So it's back in April 2018. We've come on down. If you actually notice, 1 second here, I'm going to do something real quick. Actually pull this up on the weekly. Right off the bat, you can sort of see what's going on here. I'm gonna line it up just right so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. You see that? You guys see the resemblance there? So we push up, big fall off, correction, impulse down, right? Low volatility, buying orders start to come in, hype starts to accumulate, right? These orders start to accumulate. More and more money comes into the market, push up, get that correction, push up. We've got that high test now. I would expect this to give another sort of try to push up to 6. And then I'm looking at that bigger correction. So this, again, if we are just looking at this one here, and we're speculating, you can see it's kind of an ugly expanding. But let's go ahead and bring just this one up here. Let's drop down to the daily. And this can actually go here and rein this one in. Now you see it makes more sense. Came from an impulse. Correction, descending channel, push to the upside. So you can see overall, this is our overall correction right here. I'm not drawing these lines perfect. It's just so you have an idea of what's going on. We've got our impulse. We're starting to get those reversal signs. Like I said, we've got that high test. I would expect this to correct, move a little bit higher, creating that arc, that nice little arc, and then push to the downside, all right? So overall, short term, I would be looking at this as a sell, right? And then there's going to be some buying opportunities within this channel, but as soon as this completes its secondary correction, which I'm assuming is actually what's starting at the moment. I would look, once this is complete, or we've gotten some sort of correction here, I'd look to buy up to this 6435 area, and then maybe push all the way up to 7, because fear and greed is going to come in. People are going to start buying. It's going to push up to 7, and then we'll see that overall bigger drop to the downside, completing that 90% on this pattern. So I'd look for it to sort of finish this bad boy off. We're going to get some places. It's going to push up. We're going to get this sort of move, push even higher, 7. And then you're going to notice that the way the price action ends up forming, it's going to look like this, right? It's going to have that arc, and then you're going to see the push all the way down. Does that make sense to you? No problem. All right. So is there any other pairs that you guys want me to go over? If you have any questions currently, drop them in. We got a couple minutes here to go over some questions or another coin or two. So drop them down and we can go over it. I'll give you guys a second to type it out. Nope. I never just trade one market. I'm mainly focused on crypto, but currently I have a couple of stocks that I'm trading, a couple of Forex pairs that I'm looking at. Just took a nice trade on Euro Pound. Pretty much the exact same principles. We're going over in terms of cryptos. I use it across the board. Kiwi CAD was another one, and Kiwi US. There's a couple of pairs that I took some trades here on the Euro pairs a couple weeks ago, which were real nice. But I also am looking at the cryptos consistently. But that comes with a lot of time, a lot of time. So make sure you're focusing. I always say that if you guys are just starting out, BTC alone, this one pair is more than enough for you to just follow and be able to make a profitable career, sort of, say to speak, in terms of trading through just a single pair. But you know what? Everyone wants to consistently look at other pairs and other opportunities, which is perfectly fine. And that's why we go over multiple pairs. But if you're just starting out, I would keep your finger on sort of BTC USDT's heartbeat, for the lack of better terms, and that will really open your eyes and teach you a lot of lessons in terms of trading itself. There's multiple different factors to that. It's a lot harder to explain. It's very technical and it gets real messy. That's why we have developers and other sort of market analysts that go in and look and determine these sort of firing points and these triggers that are affecting those trades, as well as there's settings in there that can manipulate the difference between a good trade and a bad trade as well. So there's a lot there. Is it more like day trading? In what sense? Small changes, not necessarily. It can be small, it can be big, right? Again, it's how much you want to risk. There's different sort of settings in there in terms of risk factors, stop loss factors, lot sizes, all different kinds of things will affect in way in which it fires and triggers buys and sells and things like that. So. Well, all right, everyone. If there's no more questions, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and cut it here. It's been a really good call. Good to be back. Good to be on the charts. I'm super happy to be going over these things with you guys again. Be sure, if you are in the Telegram group, to tag me if you have a question. Don't just send a message, because I will not see the message itself. Just tag my name in it, and it'll send me a notification. As well as we will be back 2 weeks from now for our call. Be sure to get through the content, rewatch stuff, make sure you're forecasting and actually being present on these charts. Don't let these opportunities go to waste. There's a ton of opportunities on the charts at the moment, especially on BTC USDT. So be aware. Be sure you're keeping up to date on those charts, and I will chat with all of you in 2 weeks. If not, I'll catch you shortly. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on your Friday evening. Hopefully you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.